I'm not opening. Okay, let's open. You know, it pulls from this speed rightly to 220 to 240 km per hour with no efforts. What's up YouTube? Today we have a very interesting motorcycle, the Honda CBR 650R, the latest edition, and that too on the spanking looking red color. So you might be knowing that I was owning the 2019 version of CBR 650R and I kept it almost 6 years. I just sold it a couple of months ago, and yeah, today I'm gonna review this one. So ex CBR 650R owner reviewing the current generation. So I have to say that there are not much differences Honda has done to this motorcycle. When I was just riding it right out of the bat, I can say that, because you know, riding ergonomics is same, power is same, and a little bit of cosmetic changes and a little bit of tech changes. Otherwise the motorcycle remains same. But you know, compared to the older generation, I have to say that that's the generation 1 and this is the generation 2. Compared to the generation 1, the generation 2 looks more sharper. It has a more fireblade oriented looks. So looking just like that, you know that it actually is a very heartwarming looking motorcycle. You know, just look at that. Anyone will fall in love with this motorcycle, especially with that kind of a red color. Even the black color also looks so good. I used to have the red color and then I painted it to black because I love the black color. So on this one we have very decent graphics compared to the generation 1. The generation 1 graphics was not looking so good, at least in my eyes. This one has very good looking graphics. Again, CBR 650 are written over there, and that fairing and the undercowl fairing, everything comes in, and the Honda written over there. That actually adds a lot of look to this motorcycle. By the way, the headlight is also changed. The performance of the headlight is not so good, still it's bad. On this one there's an aftermarket windscreen. By the way, this motorcycle was given to me by my friend Ranjan. You might be knowing his channel, so just check out his channel if you want to know more about this motorcycle. So let's get into the review of the motorcycle. So this comes with Dunlop tires, which are like shit bad. I have to say that. You know, I like, just after riding this motorcycle, this is what I feel. If you are planning to buy this motorcycle, just stick with this tire for the honeymoon period, and after that just switch to Michelin Road 5 or Pirelli Rosso 4 or something like that. It comes with Showa SFF, double disc in the front, a beautiful looking fairing, and the 649cc, one of the most engineered, one of the most stable engine from Honda. You know, it sounds sweet as well, and you can see that you cannot ignore the air exhaust. By the way, this comes with an underbelly exhaust which actually takes up or eats up a lot of ground clearance, and this motorcycle actually solved that problem with that air exhaust. So I used to have an Akrapovic exhaust which solving the problem of ground clearance, but it's again an underbelly exhaust. But this one is a side exhaust. Side exhaust looks much different, gives it a bit more fresh feeling to the motorcycle with that pipe. But you know, in our country it's not legal, but still I would really suggest to have an exhaust on this motorcycle, because the stock sound of the motorcycle is like very silent, and when you are out on the highway, that do riding at triple digits, most people don't get to know. So for your own safety, I'll say that if you are planning to buy this motorcycle, after 1000 kilometers or 2000 kilometers, consider yourself buying an exhaust so that people will get to know that you are actually coming faster. I'm not asking you to rev bomb inside city, but when you go out on the highway, you will appreciate. And on this one we get a frame slider attached, so it's up to you whether to have or not. I mean, I have never used frame sliders on my motorcycles, because you know, when it comes to frame sliders, there are two kind of people, one who use and one who don't use. So I sit on the don't use side of frame sliders. Okay, forget it. And now look at the tank. It's a beautiful looking tank, a puny tank, I have to say that. Compared to all the sports stores available, the tank size is not that great, but still the tank looks really good. And there is a tank grip over here. That is actually good, because you know, when you sit on the motorcycle, you literally have anything to cling on to, and the motorcycle tank is actually very, very sleepy. So in that way, that grip does a really good job. And the rider seat is not changed from the generation 1, so this is actually a really good seat. You can actually sit on this stock seat itself for a very long time. The stitching and everything looks really neat, and it is having a good quality also. After 6 years of usage on my motorcycle, the stitching actually looks like the same like that, just that you have to maintain it, that's all. And the rear seat has changed a lot compared to the older version. So this one has a little more roomy space for your pillion, but still, you know, you don't have any grab rail kind of a setup. You literally don't have anything over here, man. By the way, the tail looks good. So yeah, you don't have anything over there to hold on. So if your pillion is comfortable to hug you and sit like that, it's okay. And also you should be also comfortable sitting like that, because you know, if your girlfriend or your your wife is sitting behind, then you might be comfortable. But if you plan to drop your college mate, and I am pretty sure that you don't want to call yourself lucky, so that's a debatable question. So let's look at the tail section. The tail actually looks really neat, really cool. I'll say that the Honda has lost a little bit of Honda-ish touch on the tail end, but still it looks really good, because I see this tail light to be a little more Suzuki oriented tail light. So yes, enough of talking like that. Let's get into the motorcycle and pump it. So just by getting on the motorcycle, it's not at all a tall motorcycle, but it's a little sporty. So this is my normal riding stance. Even though it's a sports style motorcycle, this is your riding stance. It's a little far, and when you sit behind, then you get a little more sporty oriented riding stance, but it's good. I mean, I personally love sports touring motorcycle, and this one is really for that. The mirrors are doing good job. It's wide, it stands out of your shoulder area, so stock mirrors are good. I've seen people using some fancy mirrors that might be not so useful, but it looks good. Okay, coming on to the points over here, we have the new display over here. So at least Honda has given something else compared to the previous version. By the way, this motorcycle doesn't get an e-clutch, so this has an option to have a manual clutch system or an dedicated e-clutch. So this one is just before the e-clutch, which just got launched in India. I'll probably do a review on the e-clutch variant as well, don't worry on that. So you get a color TFT display over there. It's not a big display, but still packing a lot of information like speedometer, odometer, fuel level indicator, 2 trip meters, tachometer, time, whatever you ask for. But you don't get riding mode, you just get traction control here, that's all. And looking onto the switches, yeah, before that we don't get an adjustable clutch lever, but we get an adjustable brake lever and pass switch over here. That's a good thing, because previously it used to be a traction control switch here. And the joystick, I don't really like this kind of a joystick here, because it could have been a little bigger one, but it looks premium and it looks good as well, because there is a lot of quality on that button. And this is the traction control button if you want to turn it off, and the horn and indicator, which is actually swapped when you compare with a normal motorcycle. And here we have the shinam and the engine start switch. So let's hear this aero exhaust. By the way, it's with the DB. If I remove the DB, it will be hell louder. It's growling, man. It has got that deep feel from the exhaust. Yeah, so let's go for the ride. So just here we have an open road. Before that, this is purely a road oriented motorcycle. So if you are getting into this kind of road, it's manageable, just stay in your line. The motorcycle is a little heavy in the sense it's around 220 plus kg, but it manages by itself. Just that you shouldn't put into a complete gravel road, that's all. Okay, we have the road. Crazy, man, crazy acceleration. It was so much fun. By the way, the whole of the power, the torque, everything is mostly concentrated in the mid RPM. That's one good thing with this engine, because it's a 650cc well balanced engine, and it can literally give you chills when you really open the throttle completely wide open. We have one more open road. So this get an quick shifter, the upshift, not a auto blipper. So this one still, I believe, doesn't get a ride-by-wire throttle. So it gets a upshift only, not a downshift. But in the e-clutch system, you'll be having both, because it doesn't require any clutch. And we can make a very detailed review about e-clutch at a later point when that motorcycle comes in.
Before we get into the further review, let me introduce you my video sponsor, Cardo intercoms. It's been about 3 months since I switched to the Cardo Pack Talk Pro. I thought it's time I share how it's really working out. Before this, I was using the Cardo Freecom one for almost 4 years, and honestly, it never let me down. Performance and durability were the main reasons where I stayed loyal to the brand. First thing I noticed, the sound. The 45mm JBL speakers give a clear richness in both music and intercom. No more tiny hits or muffled mids. Now group chat with fellow riders is tight, thanks to the upgraded dynamic mesh, which is more stable and reliable. Then there is crash detection. That's what new for me. It doesn't scream features list, but it gives peace of mind while riding solo. Auto on off switch is nice too. Helmet on, we are ready. And when you stop, it conserves battery without any fuss. On built and weather sealing, this thing feels solid. It's IP67 rated, so rain, dust, it handled it without any complaint. And also, mounting is seamless with the magnetic air mount. If you have used Cardo before and were happy, PackTalk Pro is a meaningful setup, more safety, better sound and cleaner features. Just riding, listening, feeling more connected. And also to give you sound samples, this video is recorded with the Cardo PackTalk Pro. So now let's go back to the review.
Talking about the power of the motorcycle, it's a highly typical inline 4 character. That means you have to extract the most of the power of this motorcycle post 8000 rpm, and there is a certain degree of lag if you are riding from 4000 to around 7000 rpm. One way to resolve is you can buy an aftermarket air filter and pump in a little more air, which resolves that low end lag issue. But you have to do that. That's my personal take, because I have done it on my motorcycle and many of the owners are doing it, and it gives a little more feel to it. Otherwise you'll feel that you are left out when you're going on a group ride. So compared to the stock motorcycle, when you put in air filter, then a bigger air filter, then you'll get that smooth flowing feel. And I'll say that this engine is much practical, because I can show you that suppose you want to ride inside the city in very low speed. It's in 40 kilometer. Come on, let's bring it down a little more. Yeah, it's 39. I hit the lowest of 39 and I'm not opening. Okay, let's open. It pulls from this speed rightly to 220 to 240 km per hour with no efforts. Isn't it cool? Isn't it cool? I really love how the way this engine reacts when you open the throttle, because it's very linear, it's very predictable, it's not completely outrageous, but still it can give you chills on your spine if you are post at 10,000 rpm. And that quick shifter, it gives that tap tap sound as well, so it's really nice. So in my opinion, I'll say that the engine is such a sweet piece of engineering, so that you can use inside city, be it in the 3rd gear or the 4th gear, whatever gear you want, because it's an inline 4. It takes up the load, and then you can, when you come on this highway, you can actually cruise at a speed of 120 or 140 or even at 160. But you need a bigger or a better wind visor from the stock motorcycle, because the stock can give you a protection till a speed of I think 90 km per hour. That's all. And the flip side of this engine is that it's a little vibey, which is very unusual with a Honda engine. It gives a little bit of that bussy feel post that 6000 rpm, to be exact 1000 to 8000 rpm, where you get it on the handlebar and you get it on the foot peg, and which makes this motorcycle pushing into a vibey motorcycle feel. I mean, internationally, if you see many reviews as well, many people are complaining about it, because you never expect this out of a Honda. If you ride a 500 Honda, you ride a liter class Honda, the Fireblade, no other motorcycle has this kind of a bus feel, but it is there on this motorcycle. So it's a complaint, but it's not something to a level of bothering, but it's bothering to a person who actually rides up from a Honda. Now, apart from the engine, let's talk about the riding ergonomics. As I mentioned, this is a little sportier motorcycle, so this is my normal riding style. Look at that. The motorcycle has a little bit of a weight towards the right side. That's the reason why the motorcycle go to the right if I leave the handlebar. But yeah, it's almost fair. So this is a little sportier riding feel, and but the good thing is, if you are someone who loves sports touring, trust me, you're gonna enjoy this, because I have a theory, and I have heard that a few of the doctors also support this theory. You don't get lower back pain with this kind of ergonomics, because you are not putting pressure on each of your the bones on the spinal cord. So the only chance that you'll get a back pain is for the upper back. So upper back pain is because you are putting so much of pressure on your handlebar. Instead, you use your thighs to grip the motorcycle, have a good core strength, and just sit on the motorcycle. I cannot say that completely now, because I just had masala dosa and a kesari, which actually drops out my core strength, but still I can lean a little bit and just sit like this and comfortably tour on this motorcycle. I've done 600 kilometers in a day, and even pushed up to around 800 kilometers, because on a very good highway you can do these speeds comfortably. So this riding posture is not at all a problem if you are someone who loves sports touring, but you have to be in the riding posture. But the only trouble is, if you are a short guy, it's a good news. If you are a tall guy, you have the bad news, because the foot peg is not raised, and the foot peg feels a little taller as well. So you will have a little bit of cramped feel on your lower body, especially your knees will be feeling a little cramped. So a taller guy might have to look for a raised foot peg. So the raised foot peg or a lowered set foot peg will solve the issue. But using a lower set foot peg is like not recommended, because when you have to corner this motorcycle, especially in your canyon rides and all, you might end up losing a little more cornering clearance. So it's better to go for a raised foot peg, but still it doesn't kill your sports touring fun. It doesn't become a super sport machine immediately. So that's about the ergonomics. Now let's talk about the other thing. As I mentioned, there is a vibration, and if you ask me if there are heating issues, yeah, a little bit of heating issues inside the city if you are riding for 10 minutes to 15 minutes in the traffic. Otherwise, this doesn't scares you, or this doesn't pushes you to the limit in terms of heating in any manner. And the quality and the fit and the finish on the motorcycle is extremely good. It's a Japanese motorcycle. I'm not expecting too much of Triumph motorcycle quality or a BMW motorcycle quality on this one, but still it looks very premium. It looks really good. And only one complaint I have is like a little bit of plastic gap here and there, and that's my only complaint. But the thing is, they are not uneven. That's the thing, they are measured. Japanese people are like, they are too much onto this measuring thing. But these gaps are there. If they could fill these gaps, then I'll say that it might look as good as a Ducati if you take off all the gaps in the plastics. But it doesn't rattles, it doesn't make any trouble. It's just there, that's all. Being an owner for a 650 for almost 6 years, this is what I found. It doesn't make any trouble, but you started feeling that why that gap is always there, and after 6 years the gap is there. It's not increasing, it's just there forever. And to talk about the tires, I have to say that yes, you have to throw these tires off after your honeymoon period, and don't try to lean a lot on this motorcycle with the Dunlop tires. This is absolutely pathetic, because even just by taking through these kind of roads, that there is a little bit of undulation over here. I can feel that the tire actually gives up very easily. Even after heating up the tire, the cornering confidence is not good, and the wet confidence is really, really bad. I had a very bad experience when I was taking a slow corner. Like, it's just, I cannot even say that I was cornering, but I was riding and there was a corner and it was a wet surface, and that rate I just gave up. It just like my traction control got on and I lost the power. Then what will happen, and I tried to save the motorcycle. I was with my pillion at that time, so it's a scary situation. Better you go for a Road 5 or a Pirelli Rosso 4 or something. That's an altogether different feel on this motorcycle. It gives you a different feel. And the braking is something much different on this motorcycle, because the braking is progressive. It's good, but it's not the best. If you have someone who have used the Kawasaki 650 brakes, I mean to say that the Z650 or the Ninja 650 or the ZX6R or be the Z900 or the Street Triple. The Street Triple brakes are like here. I mean, it comes with the Brembo unit, so definitely the Street Triple braking is so good. So compared to those braking, I'll say that the braking on this motorcycle is not good. But one thing what you can do is you can change these pads to EBC cindered pads, which gives a lot of confidence and gets a lot of braking bite. So that's how I have solved that on my motorcycle. But still, it is highly recommended to change the brake pads once it is over. It's not bad, but when you start comparing it with other motorcycle, then you get to feel that this brake is not so great, And now to talk about the ground clearance, I'll say that in the stock setting you have 135 mm ground clearance. That is nothing. If you are riding solo, you have high chance of hitting all the humps. Almost 80% of the time if you are weighing from 65 to around 70 kgs, and if the payload is more than 90 kg, then that's it. Forget about the ground clearance. You'll be hitting every now and then. So yeah, that's the feedback. But this motorcycle, the ground clearance can be resolved with an aftermarket exhaust, and exhaust I'll really say to use because of this engine character, because it's so smooth and it doesn't sound at all. We have an open road. It can really go to a speed of 200 km per hour in the fourth gear itself and pushes up to a limit of 240 km per hour. Really good ride for this kind of a smaller capacity mid-weight motorcycle. The advantage is that it comes with an inline 4. And to talk about the ride feel of this, it's a little on the heavier side, but you know, it's kind of manageable. It's not too heavy motorcycle, especially on long sweeping corners and all. You can really comfortably ride it on the highways. And when it comes to the city, as I said, you just keep your line, then everything will fall into places. You don't have to worry too much about the weight. It's kind of nimble, it's easy to flick around, but the thing is, it's not a track motorcycle. Trust me, it's not a track motorcycle. I have proved it, because I've taken this motorcycle to the track and I was finding it so difficult to lean into corners, to control this motorcycle. It takes too much of effort to put this motorcycle to do a knee drag and all. So then I later figured out that first of all, tires was one problem. You have to use really good tires, and second thing is it's heavy and the suspension setup is actually onto a very softer setup. It's not really tuned for a high speed cornering kind of a setup. So I would say it's a good sports touring motorcycle for the highway in terms of agility, but not really a good motorcycle for the track. Now let's look into the ownership part. So now this motorcycle is actually selling for around 12.8 lakh on road, man, which is actually slightly onto a higher price tag. But you know, the fun part of about owning a Honda is that finally you'll get a very good resale value if you have to sell the motorcycle. You know, I bought the motorcycle for say X amount of money and I did certain mods on the motorcycle, and later when I have to sell the motorcycle, I had kind of around 10% depreciation over that X amount. That's all. But I'm not adding up the cost of the mods which I've done. But you know, this is the thing, after 5 years, if it is ridden like 20,000 to 30,000 or max 40,000, you'll really get good value for your money. So in that sense, I'll say that it's a decent pricing. Even this motorcycle can go up to 1 lakh or 2 lakh kilometers just like that, because it's like Toyota, man. It runs forever. People are actually selling it in 30,000, 40,000 because their friends would have updated the motorcycle. Otherwise, there is no good reason for someone to update it if they are just looking for a sports touring motorcycle. And the service cost is something which I'm gonna tell, and you're gonna get surprised as well. You know, it's around 2,500 to 3,000 rupees per service, and the service interval is once in 6,000 kilometers, and it's much easy to service because not too much of electronics. You can actually service this motorcycle even if you don't find a Honda service center. So I would say, yeah, servicing is much cheaper when you compare with all other super bikes in this segment, and the mileage is pretty good. Without any tuning, you'll be able to get a mileage of 22 km per liter and max of 25 km per liter when you're on the highway. I said without a tuning because, you know, I have done the tuning and I have got a mileage up to 32 km per liter when I was just doing 90 to 100 km on the highway. So yeah, it has a very good fuel economy as well, but we have an open road. The exhaust screams, man. So nice to hear. Now let me talk about the negatives which I found about the motorcycle. So first thing is obviously the problem for the tall riders. You'll have a little more cramped feel on your leg if you are a tall rider. And the second thing is, yeah, it doesn't get too much of electronics when you compare with other motorcycles in the same price bracket. You don't get an auto blipper, you don't get riding modes. It's just you and the motorcycle. And the third thing which I didn't like about the motorcycle is basically the panel gaps that you see here and there. That's all, nothing major. And if I have to compare this motorcycle with every other competitor in the segment, I cannot really say that there are a lot of competitions in land for sports motorcycle for touring. But you know, let's take the price bracket and compare it one by one. Let's start with the Ninja 650. I'll say that Ninja 650 has good torque. It's a Kawasaki machine, and both of these motorcycles does really good as a sports tourer. But you know, inline 4 touring is something different. Being on a highway, this feel is entirely different. It gives a whole together different feel of riding it, and Honda makes it much more easier when you go for service. And yeah, you have a better fuel economy as well with this motorcycle. And the next possible option is the Daytona 660, which is an inline 3, which stays much closer to this motorcycle. So I've done a comparison video of that motorcycle with this one. You can check it out, even though that comparison is actually based out of the generation 1, but most of my thoughts are same. So I'll say that if you want a little more premium equipment, a faster, a talkier machine, the 660, that's fantastic machine. I really loved taking that motorcycle for a trip, something around 1500 kilometers, and I really enjoyed it. And you know, when compared with the Honda, the only advantages, obviously the fuel economy, and the second thing, this motorcycle has a little more bigger tank compared to the Daytona, because the Daytona has a very pathetic tank range. And the third thing is, yeah, the service. Again, the Honda is actually very famous for this thing, the service and the reliability. So it's much cheaper to maintain, and compared to the Triumph motorcycle in our country, I'll say that this motorcycle has very less issues. You can ride it for 1 or 2 lakh kilometers, not a problem. And now comes the Street Triple 765R. I don't really have to compare that motorcycle with this one, because you know, it's altogether different motorcycle. That one is a track tool, much easier, lighter, faster, quick. Very nice motorcycle. Very nice motorcycle to ride. Fantastic motorcycle it is. But you know, again, if you had to fall back to this motorcycle, the only reason is you don't really want to sit on a complete naked motorcycle for your touring. And of course, compared to that motorcycle, this one has a little more pillion space. And then comes the Kawasaki series. Again, the 6R. I don't really say that the Kawasaki ZX6R is a competition, because it's a proper track tool. Don't even dare to compare that motorcycle, because it's a super sport and this one is sports touring. Both are for different use, so don't worry. Just make up your mind, just go for a test ride. You'll understand that one is a coffee and one is tea. And now comes the Z900. So this is the very famous trio actually. Previously it used to be the 765, the 900 and the 650. So compared to the Z900, you know, the pricing is much competitive, but you get a very powerful, very torquey motorcycle to ride. But end of the day, it's your choice to get all this wind on your chest and ride it whole day like that for your tours. And also the luggage carrying capacity is much less on that motorcycle. So in that manner, I'll say, if you are a touring guy, if you want to take your pillion as well for tour, and with a little more comfortable touring side, then I'll say that this one. But you know, Z900 is just a quick machine. But another point is that the 900 is a very common machine in Indian roads now. So if you want exclusivity, yeah, go for the Honda. So that's my personal take. So just in a nutshell, I'll say that if you are looking for a sports touring motorcycle for your everyday use as well, you have this motorcycle, because you will be able to manage this motorcycle inside city. You want to ride in a speed of around 20 to 30 bumper to bumper traffic, just that you have to manage the humps in your city, that's all. And when it comes to the highway, yeah, obviously you'll be able to blast it on the highway with a 160 or a 180 kilometer per hour whole day long. But you know, this feel is much different. I've been on this motorcycle for around 30,000 plus kilometers, and I have enjoyed this feel. So I'll say that if you are a sports touring guy, you're gonna never regret buying this motorcycle. So that's my take on it, and I hope this video is helpful for you. And as always, show some love in the form of likes and comments. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.